Hello, it is Sunday, December 6, 2015, and welcome to the Multifarious Man Podcast, episode number 11. Just like Bogey and Bacall, or you know how to whistle, don't you? As always, I am your host, Jay Vincent. You can follow me on Twitter at Multifarious Man or at Facebook at Multifarious Man Podcast 2015. And the website for the show and blog is www.multifariousman.com. On today's show, we are going to talk about my favorite actor of all time. That is the one and only Humphrey Bogart. Specifically, I am going to talk about my favorite Humphrey Bogart movies. Now, before we get started, I did want to wish a happy birthday to two wonderful friends that are regular listeners of the show. So, happy birthday to Liana, a.k.a. Layla, and Annette, a.k.a. Lady Gray. Now, back to the method at hand, or the matter at hand. So, last week I didn't record the show, and it was because, well, it was Thanksgiving week, and I decided to just take a break. Well, now I'm back, so got to spend some time with some family and eat to my heart's desire. So, I'm thankful for the time with my family, and glad to be back entertaining you all with the show. Also, another thing I got to do this week, which I don't get to do that often, and I'm quite glad that I did, I got to get out and listen to some live music. So on Friday the 4th, I got to actually go out and listen to a local band here in Jacksonville called Blind Mason, and they were playing at a local restaurant out on the patio. It was nice weather, so it was great. Now, the band is made up of four young men, guitarist, bassist, drummer, and saxophonist / keyboardist. And they played a nice selection of covers, including Dave Matthews, Rolling Stones, John Mayer, Bill Withers, Chuck Berry, along with some of their own original material. I got a chance to meet the band, and in the coming weeks, I will be interviewing them for the podcast. So stay tuned. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about what I've been reading, watching, and listening to. So please sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Rich and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the multifarious man. All right, welcome back to the show. So, what am I reading, watching, and listening to this week? All right, what I have been reading is, well, let me put it this way. It started with me listening to Hamilton the musical, and I've mentioned it before in the show, and I can't tell you enough how much I love this soundtrack, and I love listening to it over and over again. It is, I don't even know what to say. It is just so fantastic. I'm having a blast listening to it, and I highly recommend it. And because of that, I want to read the book that the actual musical was based on. It's Alexander Hamilton. I just know it's the title. And forgive me for not remembering actually the name of the book, but that's okay. Or rather the author of the book, but it will be in the show notes. And the reason I'm interested in it is because this soundtrack gets you excited, through hip hop and R&B, rap, and classical music. Has a nice classical musical structure, and it makes you really interested in the life of Alexander Hamilton as one of the founding fathers, and what he did for the Constitution, what he did during the Revolutionary War, all the way through, his death at the hand of of Aaron Burr during a duel. So he was a brilliant man, and a lot of the things he did impacted the birth of our nation. So definitely worth checking out. And again, in the show notes, I'll actually have the name of the biography that Alexander Hamilton, or rather Hamilton, the musical, was based on. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, what I've been watching. I've been looking forward to a show that this first season is supposed to debut on Sci-Fi Network. I want to say I think I want to say the 14th and 15th of December, parts 1 and 2, or rather episodes 1 and 2. And it's a series called The Expanse. Now, fortunately, Sci-Fi has actually made this available on demand and on the web, episode 1. So it's kind of like you get a preview of the series before it officially starts in the coming weeks. Basically, it takes place in the future, and man has colonized the asteroid belt. So you have Mars, you have the asteroid belt, or people that grew up in the asteroid belt are called belters. You have colonies on the moon, Mars, Earth, of course. And it starts off as a mystery. A detective is hired by a rich family to find their daughter who's been missing. And the first episode introduced you to the detective plus a crew that's on an ice freighter. So basically their job is to haul ice out to the outer colonies in the belts because, of course, human beings need water. And if it's not where you are, you need to bring it to you. So it's very interesting. It's based on a series of books that I've been reading. There's 5 books that this is based on. I don't think you need to read the books to be interested in it, but if you're interested in, high quality sci-fi with characters and stories that expand, it's definitely worth checking out. And the first episode, I thought, lived up to the hype, or at least the hype that I built in my mind. So again, that's on Sci-Fi Channel. Check your local listings. Next, what I've been listening to, the 800-pound gorilla that's in the room in terms of music is one Miss Adele. She released the single Hello several weeks back and finally released her album 25. Of course, her last album 21 won all types of Grammys, had many singles and hits. And this one she released about a week and a half ago, and it's setting all types of records. It broke the 3 million unit barrier. I believe a big part of it is because she's not making it available in any streaming services. You can buy it electronically. You can go through iTunes, you can go through Amazon, Google Play, all that. So you can buy the album electronically, but you can't stream it through any of the streaming services like Apple Music or Pandora or anything. And I think because of that was a big reason that it sold over 3 million units, which from what I understand was a record. I think the last that even sold anywhere near it was NSYNC back in about 2000. So definitely worth checking out. Again, that is Adele's album 25. And as I also mentioned in the beginning of this segment, I've also been listening to Hamilton, the musical, non-stop. In fact, that's one of the tracks or one of the songs on there. It's probably my favorite. It's called Non-Stop. Again, in my opinion, it's probably the best hip-hop rap album that I've heard actually in years. And it's from a musical. So definitely check it out. And when we come back, we will be talking about the man of the hour, my favorite actor, Humphrey Bogart. So please hang on. All right, we're back with episode 11 of the Multifarious Man podcast. I am your host, Jay Vincent. This is episode 11, of course, just like Bogey and Bacall, or also known as You Know How to Whistle, Don't You? Just put your lips together and blow. That's actually a line from one of the movies that we're going to be covering. So, Humphrey Bogart, he was, still probably on a lot of top lists of one of the, greatest American actors of all time. His movies were in black and white mostly. He was in his heyday in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and later married Lauren Bacall, who was one of his co-stars in 4 of his pictures. And his movie Casablanca is always listed probably, if not the top, it's probably one of the top 2 up there with Citizen Kane of top movies of all time. So, what's a kid from New York City, born and raised in Queens, coming of age in the 70s and 80s, what in the world is he doing watching old black and white movies starring Humphrey Bogart? Well, it's easy enough to understand. When I grew up in New York, I was then and still am a big-time Yankee fan. And the Yankees were shown locally on a channel called Channel 11, WPIX, New York City. And every Sunday when the game would come on, probably around 11 o'clock, before the game at about 11, they would show old movies. A lot of times it was Abbott and Costello movies, but, a good portion of the time it was old, Hollywood classics. And it was through this that I fell in love with Humphrey Bogart movies. Now, the first Humphrey Bogart movie I saw, which is actually on my list, is Key Largo. This came out in 1948. Now, Key Largo, Humphrey Bogart plays the character of Frank McCloud. He's ex-army man that's visiting the family of his friend and fellow soldier that was killed in World War II during, some action in Italy. So he comes to visit the family in Key Largo, which is in the Florida Keys. And, of course, while he's there, he gets involved. He meets, his friend's widow, meets her father. So, this is the family he's heard all about. But, of course, while he's there, a hurricane is coming. The island's going to be cut off. There's only a few guests at the hotel that they run in Key Largo because it's the end of the season. Hurricane season started. And, of course, they get involved with Edward G. Robinson, famous actor who plays a gangster trying to sneak back in the country from Cuba because he had been expelled because he was no good. So Humphrey Bogart comes and, he gets involved in more than he should, life or death situation. Either way, he's a cool character. At the end of the day, maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't. I just think you should check out the movie. It's a wonderful story, some great side characters, fabulous character actors involved. And, in fact, one key note, Lauren Bacall, of course, who became his wife, was also in this movie, and it was the last movie of 4 that they did together. Now, going back a little bit in time, I want to cover the second movie that's on my list, and this is called The Maltese Falcon. And this one, which came out in 1941, Humphrey Bogart plays Sam Spade. He's also a detective, and he has a partner, Archer. So when the movie starts, of course, Femme Fatale comes in, long-legged dame, as they call him back then, who hires these gentlemen to find her sister who's missing. She's got in with some rough character. This takes place in San Francisco, and they hire, Archer and Spade to find out what happens. So, of course, immediately, somehow his partner gets killed, and he's drawn into a web of lies and deceit with, marvelous characters, including the actor Sidney Greenstreet and also Peter Lorre. And he finds out that everything that's happening, it's because of this statue, the Maltese Falcon. So that's what, the whole story is about. There's double crosses, single crosses, triple crosses, and it's just an exciting story. Your classic hard-boiled detective, And I don't think anybody played those type of characters better than Humphrey Bogart. Now, next up on the list, now this goes a little bit forward in time, is another movie that Humphrey Bogart did, of course, with Lauren Bacall, and it is called The Big Sleep. Now, The Big Sleep is important, I believe. It's because it's also based on a book by Raymond Chandler, who actually, came in and helped with this screenplay. This was 1946. Now, the reason I think this is important is because any movie or novel detective that you hear described, or you think about and you picture the prototypical gumshoe, private eye, private dick, you're picturing this character from The Big Sleep. You're picturing Philip Marlowe. This is the guy with the fedora. He's got the trench coat. He's standing in dark alleys. He's standing in the rain. He's getting in fights, gets in shootouts, talks tough, fights tough, loves hard. Well, this is the character that, anything that you see, anything that you read novel-wise or see, and it has to do with a private eye, this is what they had in mind. So, Humphrey Bogart, completely personified this role. And it's just your classic story. Guy gets hired, to help out a rich family. Their younger daughter is the wild child, runs into some trouble with some gangsters, some gamblers she owes some money to. And, of course, Humphrey Bogart is in over his head. No one's telling him the truth. The people that hire him, the people that he's interviewing and tracking down, there's no truth to be had. There's a woman that he meets who also is played by Lauren Bacall, another fantastic role, who's the sister of the troublemaker. And, of course, she knows a lot more than she's letting on, and she does everything she can to just get him off the scent of what's happening. But there's shootouts, there's car chases, there's women in danger. Humphrey Bogart's character is in danger. He gets shot at, he gets beat up. He does his fair share of beating up. There's gangsters, there's casinos, there's gambling. But it's just a fun story, and it really does hold up. Now, some people may say, it's black and white. No one drives those old cars anymore. But stories of lies, betrayal, and deceit still resonate today. So, whether it's in the 1940s or the 1980s or the 2000 teens, this type of story is timeless. And that's why this ranks high on my list of Humphrey Bogart movies. Now, the next one, like I said, I probably mentioned it before, is probably considered one of the top movies of all time. And on my personal list of movies, it probably consistently falls in top 3. I have a couple of that switch places every once in a while. But I'm going to mention it here, and of course, that's Casablanca. This came out in 1942, and in this movie, this often quoted film, Humphrey plays Rick Blaine. So he is a cafe owner in French-occupied, so it's French Morocco, that's Nazi-occupied during World War II. This is before the United States entered the war, so this is a time where, Morocco, where it is in North Africa, it's kind of like a way station. So people escaping Europe and trying to get to the United States or other places in the world to escape the Nazis that were rolling through at that time. Casablanca was a way station. Of course, people would get that far, and sometimes they wouldn't have enough money to get any further, so they would just be stuck in Casablanca, biding their time until they could escape. Now, this story, and in this one, unlike some of the others I mentioned, Lauren Bacall was not in this one. This was Ingrid Bergman, and it's the classic story of a guy loves and loses a woman. In this case, he loved Ingrid Bergman's character Ilsa in Paris, and, had a whirlwind romance. And then suddenly, they were supposed to get together and get on a train to escape Paris before the Nazis came, and she never showed up. So here's all these years later. He's living his life. He's running his bar. He's not getting involved in any politics. He serves Nazis. He serves the French Vichy, who are the conspirators who, go along with the Nazi. He's, serves rebels, people that are against the Nazi occupation. Doesn't care. He just wants to make his money. He runs his cafe, which has an illegal casino in the back. But of course, everyone knows the casino is there, including the captain of police, the local police, who is, of course, a friend and a regular player there. So this movie is often quoted, of course, because, you have the line, "We'll always have Paris." You have all the gin joints in all the world, and she had to walk into mine. And, of course, the one at the end when he's walking into the fog at the airport where he says, "This looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Now, this movie, I think it has it all. It has love, it has intrigue, it has danger. You don't know if Humphrey Bogart's character, which way he's going to go. You don't know if he's going to choose love or if he's going to choose honor and doing the right thing to help the French resistance, which is the whole crux of the main story. I know the first time I saw this movie, it had me instantly enraptured. Just the well-drawn characters, Humphrey Bogart's main character, his side characters, Sam, who, kind of runs the bar with him, the piano players, the people, coming in and out, the young couple, the old couple. And you learn a lot about people and what they will or won't do and how they will or won't get involved. And I guess because, people still romantically talk about, World War II was the last great war, it was the greatest generation. So there's kind of that goes to it, that kind of romanticism about, this is how it was then, men were men, women were women, you did what you did to survive and you fought the good fight against the evil Axis powers. So it has all of that, of course, it has the whole edge of your seat, are they going to get away? Are they, who's going to live? Who's going to die? So that's why Casablanca, I think, probably fits, and it's always chosen as a top movie because it has a tight script, tight acting, well directed. The editing is top notch. The music, the soundtrack, everything just fits perfectly. It's a well developed story, and it stands up over time. Now, last on the list is, and even though it's not considered the best or one of the best movies or even one of the best Humphrey Bogart movies, for me, it just has a special place in my heart. I don't know. It's just, you just ever watch a movie and it just does that thing for you, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, how you're feeling, what time of the year it is. It doesn't matter. You can watch it and you still get that smile on your face. You know what's going to happen. You can probably recite the lines, but it's that movie that is it for you. Well, this one's it for me, and it's called To Have and Have Not. Now, this came out in 1944, and this also marked the debut of Lauren Bacall. So this is her first movie ever. So this is before her and Humphrey Bogart became an item. And many say this is the movie that, they became an item. So here she is, this 22-year-old slim, fresh-faced actress with a deep voice, sultry voice. When she comes into her first scene, you knew she was going to be a star, and you can understand why she went on to be, such a renowned actress. And I can understand, why Humphrey Bogart fell in love with this woman. When you see them on the screen together, the chemistry is palpable. It's crackling. It's clear. If you ever been in a room with two people or seen two people where they have chemistry, well, clearly these two did. And the characters, I don't know how much of it was real, how much it was fake, how much it was acting. I don't care, but it just works. And have and have not. Humphrey Bogart plays Harry Morgan. So this takes place in the island of Martinique, French Martinique during World War II. And of course, this is after France has fallen. So they're under Nazi control. And Humphrey Bogart is he has a history of, maybe he ran guns back in the day, or, maybe he did a little this, a little bit of that. But he has no love for the Nazis. He has no love for Germany. But he also has no love for getting involved in anyone else's business. He just wants to run his boat, take people out, go fishing, and keep his nose clean. But of course, with any great character, if you don't have any conflict, you don't have any growth. And if you don't have any growth and conflict, then there's no story. There's nothing that happens. And of course, he gets pulled in and gets involved in something that he didn't want to, but him being the noble person he is, he gets involved and ends up, meeting Lauren Bacall's character, Marie, aka Slim, who's a rich girl that, may have ran away from home, may have been running from trouble, but either way, she finds herself here in Martinique without any money to get any further, whether it's to go home or to go further. And she gets, pulled in to Harry's world. It's a wonderful story. It's romantic. It's cute. The dialogue between Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, and of course the other characters, is crackling with energy. It has all those little things that, if you have a checkbox of all the things you want in a movie, it hits them all. And of course, it has the famous line that I love. It's, you think about movies today where with the explicit sex and everything is right in your face. There's nothing subtle. The line where Lauren Bacall's character, she's been flirting with Humphrey Bogart's character, throughout the whole movie from the time they meet. And, at the end of this long scene, she turns to him and says, if you need me, just whistle. You know how to whistle, don't you? Just put your lips together and blow. Blew my mind. I might have been 12, 13, going through puberty, whatever you want to call it. But this line blew my mind. It's still, I think, one of the sexiest lines you'll ever hear. And what makes it so wonderful is it's on its surface, on paper, it's just so innocent. But the way that the line is delivered, the timing, the scene, and the look on Humphrey Bogart's face, who, doesn't miss a beat, kind of is taken off guard. But then a few seconds later, you see him try to whistle. But I think, that's one of the things that makes this one of my favorite movies. And I highly recommend it. To have and have not. If you haven't seen it, they probably still show it all the time on Turner Classic Movies, or you might be able to find it on Netflix or somewhere or other. But go to your local DVD video store, check it out. Definitely worth it. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. And it's something that you can watch with the whole family. So there you have it. My love of all things Humphrey Bogart. And I didn't even touch, his whole catalog. You could spend, episodes just talking about even stuff like The African Queen, or The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, or Angels with Dirty Faces, which he did years before with James Cagney. So if you get a chance, check out a movie by Humphrey Bogart. Start with the most well-known and then maybe dig into the catalog. It's absolutely worth it. And that's it. Now, when I come back, we're going to just close down the show for the week. Thank you again for listening. Again, this is the Multifarious Man Podcast, and I will be right back. All right, we're back. Again, this was the Multifarious Man podcast, episode 11. Thank you once again for tuning in. I hope you were entertained. Hope maybe you learned something new, and I hope you'll come back again next week. Now, one thing I want to point out, coming up next week, well, let me put it like this. Anyone that has a teenager knows the "you're so lame" kind of head shake and eye roll you get when you do something that they find embarrassing. So a lot of time I'm riding around the car with my children and a song comes on that we all know and we sing it, whatever, fine. But being that I grew up in 70s and 80s, I grew up when hip hop was coming of age. I like to, when there's a beat on that I like to freestyle and I like to have fun with it, kicking some rhymes to whatever. Of course, my kids look at me like, Dad, the way they put it, my 13-year-old said, Dad, you couldn't freestyle if you wrote it down. No, freestyle, of course, is, rhyming just off the top of your head to the beat. Fine. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Growing up, anyone from New York or from any city, well, I'll just say with New York, riding home on the Q5 bus, we'd sit in the back, someone would, get a beat going, and you just clown, have some fun. You get together with your friends, you come up with some silly rhymes or whatever. Sometimes they were great, sometimes they were not so great. Now, for my child to tell me that I'm not cool enough or I'm not hip enough and, all she knows today is Iggy Azalea and Drake and, I grew up when hip-hop was real hip-hop and, some of the best rappers of all time, from your Rakim to your Eric, from Rakim to Big Daddy Kane to KRS-One with BDP, LL Cool J still going strong. So I know how to kick rhymes. I don't care what anybody says. So, challenge accepted. She doesn't think I can do it. I'm going to show it. So, next week, I am going to, show my child and anyone that's listening that I actually do have some serious skills. Give me a pen and a pad, a nice beat. Just you wait. So, next week, at the end of the show, instead of the usual theme music to take you out, I'm going to let you hear some freshly penned rhymes and beats that I came up with. And I'm going to show my child that I may be old school, but I'm not old. So I hope you stick around. Maybe you get a laugh out of it. Maybe you'll be like, oh, okay. All right. Jay Vincent got some skills. Okay. Look, I will prove it. I will show it and prove it, as we used to say. But again, thank you again for listening to this week's episode. Follow me on Twitter at Multifarious Man. Suddenly I'm, twiddling. Oh, another one thing before I go. I've noticed listening to the show that I say an awful lot. So please, 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 if you're listening to it, no drinking games with the show. Anything that I say over and over again, please don't do it. I'm going to clean that up and work on it. So again, thank you for listening, and I hope you're listening again in the future. Spread the word. Let your friends know. We're on iTunes. We're on Spreaker. We're also on Stitcher. You can just do a search on any of those services under Multifarious Man or Multifarious Man Podcast. Check us out. Spread the word. Have some fun. Let me know what you think. You can send me an email at multifarious.man.podcast@gmail.com, or of course just send me a message on Twitter at multifariousman. Thanks again. I will catch you next week. And like I always say, why be various when you could be multifarious? Peace out. Rich and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dean Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the multifarious man.